Hello, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everybody. Let's go for the day 4. Okay, just give a minute. Here we go. Day 4. Okay. Okay, team. So, let's get started. Okay, so nice to see all you people. Good evening in the chats. We are seeing good evening from Balaji, good evening Kavita, good evening Lakshman, good evening Sudhir. Okay, so all the members in the house, good evening. Okay, good evening Akhila, good evening all. Fine, chalo, then let's get started. Soumendra Das also in. Okay, so guys, today's session is going to be agile. Okay, and it's really something valuable. Okay, it's something really required for the IT industry, for every project almost. Let me tell you, when I started my IT career in the year 2010. Okay, so from that time, for around 2 years or 3 years, I worked in a non-agile environment. Okay, 2 years, 3 years worked in a non-agile waterfall approach, this approach, that approach. For 2, 3 years, I worked that, and after that onwards, we switched to agile. And since almost past 9+ years now, I've been working in the agile environment itself. Okay, now basically, guys, IT industry develops project. It needs to follow certain process. How are you going to develop it? Because there is complexity, there are so many people involved, there are so many customers involved, there is requirement, there are deadlines. So this is what, right? So a project needs to be developed. It contains a lot of complexity, and it has to be done in a very smoother manner so that we deliver things back to the customer. So that's what we are going to talk about today. And this process, people call it as SDLC, like software development life cycle, project life cycle, multiple names. But ultimately, it's just a way of working. How does your team work? How does your project development happens? Okay. And since past 9+ years, I have been working in Agile. And I have heard like almost everybody in the current times, if I'm speaking with anybody, they tell Agile itself is happening. So I don't know whether all the projects of industry has moved, but yes, in reality, you will find many projects which are running in Agile, and it is always required for someone to know what exactly Agile is. Okay. Now the benefit which I have seen with Agile is it is a very good result-oriented system. Thoda sa guys, forget that you are an employee or anybody. Okay, so look at it from a neutral perspective. Okay, if you are a responsible member of the IT industry, काम चोरों के लिए agile is going to backfire. Okay, so if you don't like to work and all, agile डंडे लेके काम करवाएगा. This is how it works. Okay, and it is pretty good. Like, why unnecessarily pay money for people who are not really wanting to put efforts? Guys, life is like that. Okay, and if you want to succeed, efforts, it's the way. So agile is something that it will give results. Okay, so if you really work in an agile environment, somewhat even hiccups happen, but constant customer delivery is going to happen and people will be happy. So that's what agile gives. Okay, now basically there are three parties. Any project development includes three parties. In all, if all these three parties are happy, so over and all value will definitely be happy, right? So one is the customer, they want the project to be done. One is the company, so the company which actually says to the customer, yes, we will develop your project and the building and everything is done. And the third one is the team which actually does it. So for any project cycle for business to run, three parties are involved. And if all the three parties are happy, then over and all result is always going to be good, right? So with previous models, we'll not go into detail. Let's not make it a theory session. With the previous models, there were a lot of problems. When I worked for 2-3 years in my beginning, there was so much confusion there. Literally what happened is, guys, six months projects we were working on, I have literally forgot what I developed 4 months ago. Okay, and then it is going to testing at some phase, and then I am like, did I develop this code? And then we are looking at the code trying to understand. The developer itself is forgetting what they developed 6 months ago, and that's really bad. Okay, so it looks like an alien code, and the lot of problems with it. ये तो एक बोला, I don't know, before me industry had it for a long time, they might have struggled a lot there. And after that, people realized that there has to be a better way of doing things, because things will complicate. IT industry evolved so much from that point to the current time. So people said agile is the way, and there was a lot of experimenting with agile. Okay, so देखो एक कोर चीज होती है कि अजाइल हेल्प्स टू गेट फास्टर रिजल्ट्स इन द बेस्ट पॉसिबल मैनर without burdening even the team members. So agile is a system which is good for the customer, good for the team, and good for the company. So it's not going to pressurize anybody. Okay, that's the beauty part of it. But unfortunately, now let's get it very real, practical, theory apart. Okay, unfortunately, many companies in the IT are not able to apply agile properly, and because of that they end up adding pressure on themselves, because they are not sticking with some basics and disciplines of agile, and that adds team under pressure, tight delivery, customer still unhappy. So that means agile is there and it's really working, it will give nice results, but if it is wrongly implemented, it will cause problems for people. And I have seen that. In fact, for some phase of life in my team also, we struggled a lot with it, and then we got some very senior guys to work with us. We came up with new changes and all that, and it is a real big problem. Okay, so now the takeaway here is, whichever company or project you belong into, so whatever we are going to discuss today, okay, so my target is not key you take and you implement that in your system, because it completely depends upon what level you are in your team right now. If you are senior, maybe yes, you can do it, but at least this much value you should take. Okay, when you are going to your project, the learnings that we discussed today, you personally apply it on yourself, even if other team members are not doing. And even if you do this, your life will become peaceful. That's the magic of it. So you don't need the entire system to work properly. If you work properly, you will be in a pretty mental, peaceful state. Okay, that's what it is. Chalo. So I'll be sharing the screen, and one by one, we will start noting down a few things about the magic of this entire agile and how things happen through. Okay. So everyone stay alert. Okay. All the guys who might be sleeping, I don't know. Okay. Some people might still do that. But guys, देखो simple होता है. IT career is not a joke. There is pressure, there is tension, there is worry, and level of seriousness is required at job in order to do things in a best possible manner. Okay, and if you want to have that seriousness, you should really be serious to even learn. Some time pass, some casual, that's not how life works. Okay, and that's where people, like when layoffs happening, recessions happening, why are they worried? Because they are not prepared enough for challenges. And if all lifelong you're just casual time passing attitude, so it's not going to work out as well, right? So be alert, be ready to learn, be ready to upgrade yourself, enjoy life, plus become worthy enough. And when these two things go, so level of seriousness definitely required. Okay, fine. Chalo, it's 9:11. We have 50 minutes to take on with the session. Sharing the screen. Key disciplines, key basics of project development we will understand, and then you guys can start following it at your day-to-day work cycle. There we go. Okay. Fine. There you go. First of all, what exactly agile is? So it says develop the project in pieces. Okay, so don't develop everything in one shot for 1 year and then deliver. They say, okay, break it down into smaller pieces, develop something, test something, deploy it into production. This is how it is. So rather than waiting for even long-term releases, people say ke bhai fatafat in a matter of generally 2 weeks. This is a very common model. So every 2 weeks, you develop something for 2 weeks, you test it, you deploy it into production. Nothing but production launches happen at a very frequent pace if Agile is there. Without Agile, generally, even some big companies right now also is taking like six months for product launches. It really is like an elephant, slow pace. But startups, small companies, fast-paced companies work really awesome. Okay? So they are faster, they get the things done. So Agile says, break down your entire project into smaller pieces. अरे कृष्णा ला लो यार उसको भी सिखाते हैं ला लो ओके उसको स्टार्टिंग से कोडिंग में डालते हैं बच्चे को आईटी का दिग्गज बनेगा fine. So break down your entire project into smaller sections and keep launching it time to time. Okay, and as part of this 2 week duration, okay, so in the 2 weeks you have to develop it, test it, and not just that, actually there is a full cycle. So it take a feature and work on it end to end. What does this mean? Take a feature, understand requirement, design it, okay, review the design, okay, next estimate it, next whatever design is finalized, further plan it between UI, server, QA, who, how, what, how will they are going to develop these pieces, lower level. So this planning includes lower level implementation. Okay, next coding, UI plus server, they continue with their coding. Next QA continues with their test case writing. Okay, next unit testing will be coming, next dev testing will be coming, next QA testing will be coming. Okay, sometimes load testing will happen, which is nothing but performance testing. Sometimes security testing. This is a process, and once it is signed off, UAT testing, user acceptance, the customers clients might do a testing, and once all of this thing is done, then prod launch. यहाँ पे भी कभी pre-prod का drama happens, blue green deployment, something. It's a process. Now you need to understand कि they are basically expecting every feature should pass through this kind of a process. Okay, and there are multiple ways in which Agile has been implemented. Okay, the popular ways is, so basically what is Agile? It's a in short time frames, keep developing and deploying something in production in shorter phase. Don't wait for bulk shots. Okay, fine. And there are multiple ways of doing it. One popular one in the market is Scrum approach. Pretty stable, pretty result oriented. But there are some projects which is having Kanban. I worked with both of them. Okay, and I worked even with the third variation, ScrumBan. Okay, now there are problems, pros and cons in each of the approach. Okay, now with Scrum, it is a pretty predictable thing, but there are some chances that you might, okay, if you really correctly implement Kanban, you will be more productive than plain Scrum if you are implementing. Okay, but you need to be able to do it very properly because you have to be really in control. So with Kanban approach, you can get more delivery than Scrum. But many times people are not able to use Kanban efficiently. So that is where people then stick with basic Scrum because it is reliable, constant, good delivery. Okay, so it is really good. It is satisfying. So that's where people follow this, and some people merge these two things together as well. Okay, so how exactly? So the thing is, for our sake of conversation, we will be sticking to simple Scrum approach of working. For rest, how the other things work, you go ahead, Google it, watch it in YouTube, check it out, whatever there is. So, but we want to keep it really practical and understandable. So we'll stick with the Scrum because yes, it is widely used and it is giving constant results, and many projects are using Scrum blindly because they know it's a proven method. Because some people might have variations, but let's stick to Scrum for the understanding's sake. Otherwise, it might unnecessarily open so many things. Fine. Now, what is required is, okay, there are requirements which will come to you. So in the agile approach, the person who gives you the requirement, okay, that person is called as product owner. Terminology. Okay, so the product owner works closely with business. So nothing but who is it, right? Let's understand. Okay, there is a client team. Nothing but client is called as business. So these are the guys, the clients, the business team. Okay, they want application to be developed. They have the actual requirements. Now the thing is, the business team, whatever requirements they have, the tech team is supposed to develop it and deliver it. Develop and deliver. Basically, only two parties are required. Client is required and a tech team is required, right? Now, there were cases, let me tell you, where I had to work directly with the business clients without a product owner in picture. And for 6 months or so, I worked on this. Now, let me tell you key confusion. Okay, business is not clear on IT development. They are really business minded people. उनको पता भी नहीं होता है कुछ. They just know कि भाई we want business, we want an application which helps us to make maybe money transfer or payment gateway or online shopping or doing a banking something. Okay, they don't really understand how the product should actually be, how many fields should be there, how many forms should be there. They don't get all those details. They just know, okay, we want some application where our business can flow properly. And then we were really struggling because they just knew we want this. Okay, and they are not even clear how many fields should be there, how should be the business logic. That clarity completely was missing to them. And point is, even as a tech team, we need that kind of clarity, give requirements. And then I worked for it like 6 months, and it was really painful. Like they used to just tell us we want this, and we used to supply them 3-4 options. Ye chahiye, wo chahiye, what do you actually want? Then it was complete total time waste. And then we realized कि भाई product owner is mandatory and it has to come as early as possible. Okay, fine, the product owner came, and then this became the bridge between clients and the tech team. Okay, and so from that point onwards, for many further projects also, I never, or my team never directly interacts with the business people. We interact at the maximum to the layer of product owners. Okay, and that's what is coming like a section to you. Okay, it but depends how it works in your project, but I'm saying how the real general world works. Okay, fine. Now once this is done, in the tech team, primarily there is a one designation called as Scrum Master in Agile. Okay, and rest will be called as team. So in the team, there will be seniors, there will be UI, there will be server, okay, there will be tester. All of those members comprise of a team. Fine. So this team works with the product owner to understand the requirement and to build the software. So how the chain of flow works: business gets some requirement, product owner directly talks with them long enough to really understand how the application should be built up. Then these guys define that system. Okay, let's build a project, let's build a website or an application. It will have so many pages, every page will have these many fields. On this field submit if happens, then how the application behavior should be. All of that requirement is developed by this product owner, and then this requirement he further comes and explains to the team. If the team has questions, they raise it back to them. If there are no questions, clarifications, everything is done, the team starts developing it, we demo it, and we deploy it into production. Okay, simple. So these are how things are. Now, few things For many of my projects, I have seen the product owner, for example, I do projects with European clients. Okay, so for them, many times the product owner is not local. अपना Indian बंदा नहीं है. ठीक है, so these guys are also from Europe. So product owner is recruited at the client side itself, but it could be anything. But just trying to tell, it could be like these people are coming from a different culture, different place, and directly working with business. So you would have to interact. Okay, and that is where comes key. You have to really be very clear and transparent in your communication, in clarity of thoughts, because people of different cultures are also mixing here across the globe. Okay, so that communication really becomes very critical about the thought process. Okay, fine. So all these things said and done, requirements are coming. Okay, now the thing is, step by step, let's get into the project related flow, how things actually work. Okay, now देखो, agile scrum approach, okay, is defining some very dedicated meetings. Okay, now the thing is, one meeting is called as sprint planning. Okay, now let's break it down, a few terms here. This 2 weeks working window, we said, right, okay, you have to develop a project for, let's say, 2 weeks. So there is a 2 weeks time. In this 2 weeks, you take a requirement, you take some feature, and in the 2 weeks itself, you do these stuff, and then you launch it. So that 2 weeks window is actually called as sprint. Generally, if you are into non-development project, let's say if you are into production support, you want to switch to a development journey, this session will be useful. If you don't have, if you're working in, if you're in IT, but you're on bench or somewhere, you guys will be needing this. And if you're into a project where the right practices are not being followed, then you will be needing this. And if you're already working in Agile, you know these all stuff, but not properly safeguarding the checkpoints, which we will discuss now. So if you're not protecting yourself properly in industry, you will end up feeling pressure and heat. Okay, so now know the best practices and try to apply this at your work. Now, how exactly it happens? This 2 weeks working window, okay, is called as a sprint. Now the thing is, different projects might have different windows. Okay, sometimes 1 week sprint could be there, 3 week sprint could be there. Okay, now a recent study, sometimes what they said is, it was always a 2 week sprint. All of a sudden, the team decided, let's do a 3 week because of some factors. So sometimes flexible, the time window can also change. Okay, so just know that part as well. Now it is a 2 week sprint, nothing but it has a start point and an end point. That is the 2 weeks. So this is day 1 and this is whatever day 10, 2 weeks window. Now, basically in this time, the full development cycle should start, QA should test, and all of these things should happen and it should be given forward. Now, how it happens, okay, I'll again talk about some specific cases. Firstly, okay, you need to be clear with requirements before you start your coding. Okay, now that means before even you get into this starting of your sprint for coding, you need to take this as a separate phase. Agile is telling it optionally, but make it mandatory for your projects and your life. Okay, Agile says it's a good practice to do it otherwise, but now let me tell you, okay, mandatory kya hona chahiye. Okay, now requirement gathering or refining, this is also called as refining. Okay, requirement gathering meeting or refinement meeting or grooming meeting, grooming, all these are terminologies for the same stuff where the requirement will be discussed. Now generally what it is said, okay, and it is like I practically applied both, not this approach and this approach, and this really works well. What you need to do is the requirements should be completely, the requirement clarity part should be detached from your sprint cycle. Okay, don't try to do the requirements as part of your sprint day one activity of maybe sprint planning or something, you have to split these two parts separately. Okay. Now, what we have done in our projects is every Wednesday we do requirement clarification or this grooming call every Wednesday. It's a weekly recurrent meeting where the product owner comes to us with requirements. Ki bhai, we have to develop this. This is the requirement. Blah blah blah. Product owner comes to us. Okay, and then we keep discussing whether it's possible. We'll get more into this requirement phase, but just for now, understand every Wednesday the requirements are being discussed. Okay, and now if you just look at it, right? So Wednesday we start with requirement. Sometimes the requirement will be clear for starting in the next sprint. Okay, now let's take some example. Let's say our sprint is 2-week sprint starting Monday to Friday. This is week 1, and then week 2 will come. Week 2, Monday to Friday. So this is how our continuous sprints is happening. So basically our sprint start date is here, our sprint end date is here. And now let's say we are in week 0, and here on Wednesday we are doing requirement, because this is important. Focus in your project. Guys, don't give commitment to the product if you don't have clarity of what feature needs to be developed. Here people are going wrong. Okay, you need to maintain some disciplines. When the requirement comes to you, let's say on Wednesday, sometimes the business or the product might not give you requirements even on the day of the sprint also. And if the team start doing the development without proper requirements, there is always a chance that your 2 weeks of life will become hell, because you were not even clear. And while you're working on that, requirements are changing, things are not clear, you are further asking questions. It completely disturbs the flow of development of 2 weeks. Your 2 weeks should be almost perfect. So the best way of doing it is all the requirement gathering, clarifications, everything, you do this separately. Don't try to mix it up with your regular release process. Release may, you need to have clear cut items which are ready for development. That is where in Agile there is a term called as definition of ready. There are two terms basically, definition of ready and definition of done. Okay, now definition of ready means, is the requirement or ticket some term, okay, is the requirement ready for development? That is called as definition of ready. Now देखो guys, you need to act like a safeguard on the day 1 of the sprint. Okay, whatever requirement is shared to you guys, you make this as your personal priority. Requirement should be clear before you even start your development in the sprint. If it is not there, it will be causing problems, guaranteed. Okay, so now let's say Wednesday they came, they gave us some requirements. Guys, immediately as soon as they give requirement, immediately they'll ask for estimates. But you cannot estimate it. It needs to be brainstormed. There is some process, okay, which has to be followed without, because the product will ask, they give requirement and they will be like, okay, so please tell me how much time it will take. But without analysis, you should never ever commit to any timelines. Okay, always say ki bhai, give us some time, we will study, analyze, check, and then confirm you back. Always your approach should be like that. Small things, if it is there like half of a day, you might just tell it in the call. But something which is major work, always take some time for doing it. That's a thumb rule. Okay, never commit to estimates immediately as soon as you hear the requirements for the first time, because improper analysis, if you tell estimates like it might take 2 days, it will, if it is not properly analyzed, it will cause problems. So now the thing is, let's say on Wednesday requirements came to you. Now general approach kya hota hai guys? Agile says the requirements will come half baked. That means half ready requirements will come, not fully prepared, and it is supposed to be brainstorming between the tech team and the product owner. This is what Agile is saying. Nothing but almost 60% requirements will be ready when he's coming for Wednesday grooming call. 60, maybe let's say 70, but it will not be 100% ready. Okay, nothing but when they are specifying the requirements, they don't know whether it is technically possible to implement or not. That the technical team has to tell. Okay, sometimes even small statements might get pretty complex in implementation. Now the technical team, guys, you have to do this at your job. Tell them, okay, no, it is unnecessary complexity. Please change the requirement. Guys, technical teams needs to work closely with product to even change the requirements. Sometimes even though business is asking for something, you know the technical complexity it will add in the project. So you should say, no, we are not going to do this. Sometimes if they are suggesting something, if it is more painful, be free to tell how much more pain will come in the system from maintenance and other perspective. Ask them, how can you simplify that? So it has to be a to and fro call. So what does that mean? Requirement is coming to you on, let's say, Wednesday. After that, this to and fro takes time. It might not be done in one day. It might sometimes exceed for 2-3 days, because product owner will say, oh, if you guys cannot build this, then we would have to think about some other solution. He further goes, talks to the business team, okay, this is not possible to do, can we change this? To and fro happens. It might take a few days, and you need to understand they will not come with one requirement every time. They might have like bulk of requirements, sometimes 5 requirements, 10 requirements. But the thing is, for those 5-10 to and fro going on, that means some of the requirements will be ready for development and some of the requirements will not be ready for development. That is where your seniors in the team should take a strong stand. Okay, which features can you really promise for delivering back? And if this is not happening in your project, there is going to be definite consequences, guaranteed. And you will face pain, you will stretch late nights, requirements will keep changing, unexpected problems will start coming because you did not analyze it properly, requirements changing, 2 weeks window, end delivery. What will happen? Let me tell you, the full team will work as hard as possible, stretch more, but in the end, the quality of work will be impacted and customer will still be unhappy. And you will be like, "Arey yaar, we are working so hard and still the result is not coming." So the suggestion for you is, before the sprint itself, groom the requirements. We will get into more details of grooming. Okay, we'll touch all those topics, but before the sprint itself, groom the requirements. Come up with questions, ask the questions, get the clarity. Think about technical implementation at a high level design. We will even go to that. Okay, but how the services should be, how we should talk to the database, what kind of complexity can come for implementing this ticket from technical perspective. Okay, and does it need to build some POC before really getting on with functionality? All that high level technical design approach is also going to be discussed. When all of that thing is done, then you basically say, yes, the ticket is ready for development. DOR. And if it is ready for development, definition of ready basically, if it is ready for development, then only you take it forward. Okay, these simple 2 rules you have to apply and make it a regular practice all throughout your life. Okay, so that's the first conclusion. Let me even write it down so that it will be available. Okay, requirement gathering should be detached from regular sprint process. Okay, next, all open questions should be clarified. Tech high level design should be ready before day 1 of sprint. Nothing but definition of ready should be met. DOR. Now Google more about it, read about it, what is DOR, what all generally people do for multiple projects for this. But yes, before the day one, you have to just make sure these are mandated things. If the requirements are not clear, simply don't take it in the sprint. Tell them we will do it in the next sprint. Nothing but after that, week 3 will come, right? Week 3, week 4 will come. You can do that, guys. You can push the project owner back because they did not do their job properly. They did not give you the right requirements. Why should you take the pain of that? Let them fix their problems. Okay, so just maintain this discipline. Okay, you did not clarify these requirements properly. Now already day one is there, so we cannot do it as part of these 2 weeks. We want you to move it to the next date, which is week 3. Now initially they will say no, 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 not good, but after that they will start giving you the requirements on time and you will start accordingly building it. Okay, fine. This is what is the starting phase. Now next thing is, how does the requirement come to you? Now for many projects it is coming in Jira kind of tool. Requirements come in Jira. Now Agile says, देखो, यहाँ पे you don't have to much understand this, but there are some disciplines which is mandatory to come to you as part of every requirement. If in your project this is not followed, then you ask the right questions to your whoever product manager or the team members to get these things clear. Okay, first, for every requirement, okay, for every requirement, guys, again this is based upon huge experience of IT industry. Any requirement which comes to you, you need to have clarity in all of these below things which we are going to discuss right now. If it is not clear and you start even designing, even developing, there will be so many questions which will come and which will be backfiring on you. And देखो guys, confused work, if you pick for development, you will cause more problems to yourself. You will rework, you will have further questions, you will keep asking those questions, your timeline will be delayed and everything will go for a toss. So before even getting started with coding, you need to have these things properly answered for every requirement. Okay, and this will give you clarity in thinking. First, who is the user of this requirement? Okay, Agile says they have introduced a concept called as requirement is called as user story. Okay, for example, let's say LinkedIn, for example, right? LinkedIn is having a regular user who just signs up and starts using the account as a general normal LinkedIn user. So one ho gaya ke bhai, who is the user in that case? A regular user. Then there will be some people, they have taken premium accounts of LinkedIn. So now they belong into another category of user as a premium user of LinkedIn. Now there could be some other person who is using LinkedIn for marketing. So as a marketing kind of user, nothing but there could be multiple users. So you need to know in your business for which user the requirement is being built, nothing but who. Next, you should be clear what the requirement is, nothing but what part. Who should be clear for whom you are building this. Guys, as a developer, you should ask this question, kiske liye bana rahe? Why? Because you have to do brainstorming. You need to ask questions so that you need to first understand the requirement, why it is important, for who it is being happening. This clarity is required. Okay, who? Next, what exactly is the requirement and why this requirement is even required? First of all, guys, don't think tech team or the dev team is dumb and whatever business says you guys have to do it. It's not like that. We work in a smarter manner. We work in collaboration with product. If the business is telling us something, we need to really understand why. Because if you know these factors, you will be able to better develop the system, covering a lot of cases. Without understanding this, you just pick up, it's a problem, so this will not work. So first you need to have a clarity who, for whom you are developing this, what exactly is the feature that you want to develop, and why this feature is being even required in the first place in production. Ask these questions. Okay, now Agile has said this very beautifully. Okay, Agile has made it as a standard. Okay, these three things should always be answered in like initial 2 lines of the requirement, where they say there is a template. Okay, as a let's say so and so user, let's say premium LinkedIn user. So there is this template. Agile is telling it, but if it is not being followed in your project, that's where consequences will come. So everybody should really apply. If not there, you ask this question as a user. Then there is a template. I want and then here comes whatever functionality they want to build. And then comes the third phase. Okay, so that I can achieve the benefit or the why part, the benefit part. Okay, so the requirement, whichever comes to you, will be available in this form. Okay, simple form, but basically this answers these 3 questions. If somebody reads this statement, you get all the clarity. Okay, why, what you're going to build, for which user you are building it, and why are you building it. One line which tells everything, full story. That is really required. That kind of clarity is required. If it is not there in your project, you ask these questions during the grooming. So that will help you to properly decide. Fine. Next. Dekho. Important is, if there are any UI components, you need to get clear-cut mocks. Okay, mockups or wireframes ready. Okay. Next, this requirement might just include like 1 line, 2 line. Okay, but for that requirement, there might be a lot of scenarios to be done. Okay, for example, let's take simple this feature. Okay, 3 times the user is trying to log in, and if 3 incorrect password is done, then the user account should be locked. Okay, simple. So what the basic requirement will be, okay, as a existing user, okay, trying to log into the system, okay, I want a functionality to lock the user if 3 times wrong password is entered. Okay, so that why is like we can prevent maybe somebody trying to hack the system or something like that. Okay, so incorrect user trying to attempt to break in the system, for that, so simple, as a existing user, I want a feature to lock the account if 3 invalid attempts are made, so that we can protect our system from so and so thing. Now the point is, in 2-3 lines you can understand this requirement very proper, but the thing is it is not sufficient for doing your development. Why? Because there is so much of drama inside this simple requirement. For example, every time, what should be the error message if an invalid thing comes? Okay, so first time when you try, automatically a question is coming. Okay, first attempt, what should be the error message? Okay, second attempt, what should be the error message? It could be same, it could be just increment some counter and show it. Maybe it could be display a warning to him, if he tries incorrect one more time, his account is going to be locked. All that is not covered here, but it is required for building the feature. So that's where you start thinking logically along with the product. He might have missed this. You have to think like a customer even while you're doing the grooming. Think like an end customer. Are yaar, 2 baar aaya, third time he might mistakenly talk. So you should tell to the product owner, can we display him a message? If he attempts third time, account is going to be locked, so he will be more cautious here. That kind of thing, if they have missed it, so all that becomes behavior. Warning message. If the product missed it, you raise it to them. Warning message to be displayed. Okay. Now again a scenario comes. If the user tries 2 times, 2 failed, and then successful, 2 failed, then successful, then what the behavior should be? Should we get him properly in the system and retain and like reset those counters, or how exactly the behavior should be? question. If he tries one time, failed, and then successful, then should we retain this old fail, or it is only one time for that browser session, how it will be? Okay, all these questions will be coming while you are trying to really implement. Okay, and if it is locking, there are many more questions. If it is locked for how long? Is it like infinitely locked, or for 24 hours, or for 1 hour, or is it going to be a dynamic? If the user is a beginner user, you give him a bigger time. If it is a long use, like, questions will come, which 2-3 lines will not be sufficient to specify. Now that is where you guys have to start digging, and all of these behaviors, this is what happens in requirement grooming phase. These question needs to come up everything. इसमें क्या करेंगे, उसमें क्या करेंगे? You need to think like a customer, not first from the implementation perspective, because product owner will also forget a lot of these use cases. You need to think like a customer. Oh, so if I'm doing this, then this is happening. If this doesn't happen, then what? That's how you think. That's how you think on the requirements. And then if there is something not making sense to you, you ask questions back. But here is a dead end. Like 2 times gone, and now he's trying even 3rd time, and you are showing this kind of message, then he cannot do anything. How can he automatically reset? Well, questions will come. Let your brain think. And now all these behaviors, where are they going to tell you that? That is where in the requirements in Agile, they call a term called as acceptance criteria. Here around 5 points, 10 points will be mentioned as the behaviors of the system. When you develop this functionality, they want all this as a must and a should requirement. That becomes the acceptance criteria. And this gives you clarity about what you have to develop further. That's how important it is. Okay, so understand, khali bolne se kaam nahi chalta. In many companies, what is happening is, in fact, this happened previously with me, like many years ago. Product owner used to just come, talk the requirements in call, and say, hey, we explained you everything, now you guys develop it. And in Jira, only 1-2 lines are written, and there is nothing there in Jira. Such kind of projects will end up in a very bad shape, because guys, people will forget anyways what was discussed. And if the things are not clearly written in requirement, developers will definitely miss something. And if you miss something, it goes to production, there will be consequences. Product owner will be like, I explained you everything in call, blah blah blah, but wrong practices. Okay, so as a thumb rule, in your project you should encourage कि भाई give everything in written in Jira to us in proper manner, with all of these things, mocks, wireframes, blah blah blah. Now there are further more things. So this is fine so far. This is from requirement perspective. Okay, now the next thing comes here is you need to identify dependencies. Now this becomes a technical person's job. Tech guys, you need to identify all the dependencies. Matlab, apart from the team, what all things are required for this requirement to build. Everything has to be for doing something. They are going to do some configuration in, let's say, Nginx or AWS somewhere. Okay, or a new script needs to be installed in production. Okay, or anything like DevOps dependencies needs to be identified. If you think you need to review this with other leads, other cross team, that needs to be identified. Okay, now sometimes, now this is interesting. Okay, we yesterday spoke about third-party integrations. As part of yesterday, we said about third-party integration, your company calling some other company. Now, when this happens, it's not going to be a publicly open endpoint. These guys, the third company, will not give a publicly open endpoint. They will give an endpoint which is password protected, security protected. Now, the thing is, where are the credentials for that? If this requirement includes those credentials, you don't have it, because that is a separate process in itself. So you need to write it down here, third party credentials needed. Because even if you develop everything, if you don't have the credentials, you cannot be able to test it. So write it down. Like this, if you feel database wise, it might get challenging, Go ahead, asking for DBA support for any performance related looks. Now you just have to see who all other than you or your team will be required for this, and you have to specify that in Jira itself, so that you should not forget these things again and again. Okay, IT job is a tricky job. If you just think and forget it, you will definitely encounter problems. So get organized, start tracking these things. So you have to do this for your tickets from tomorrow onwards. Identify, write it down, don't keep it in mind, literally write it down. Okay, fine. Now the thing is, guys, after going through these requirements, so let's say Wednesday you go for this grooming call. Wednesday grooming call, as part of the grooming call, he comes, he launches Jira, and he shows you all of this drama there, and you're trying to discuss to and fro and all that. Okay, and then you say, fine, we understood the requirement high level, but now my team wants to discuss it internally. So what we do is, we never finalize a requirement in the first meeting itself. Why? Because guys, 1 hour meeting, 2 hour meeting, on the fly, something might not click you. So never. Again, next I'm saying thumb rule of living in IT career. Small tickets, fine, but medium, even medium complexity tickets. Requirement is coming, you brainstorm it, but don't finalize the requirement in that call itself. Okay, even if they ask estimate, don't give that estimate. Well, give us half of a day more so that we can internally discuss this, and if there are any questions, we will come back to you, and once we are clear, then we will accordingly finish this work. Always this should be your statements. You have to double think on the same requirement before giving time commitment to anybody. That's how, make it as a thumb rule. Now what we do, okay, in our team, once this initial requirement is done, we go for, so this we call it as a grooming call, right? Requirement gathering or grooming call. So we named it multiple things. Where is it? Refinement call, grooming call, requirement gathering call. We do a second call which is called as internal grooming or internal refinement call, where this is between only the tech guys. Product owner is not coming there. We really think about all of these things again. Okay, and now there might be now questions coming up, because earlier you tried to find it, but still later if you are rethinking about the requirement, when multiple people are thinking, more questions will be coming. So question list should be again prepared. Or isme kya hoga, isme kya hoga, what will happen here, what will happen here, because now you will start thinking more deeper. So as part of your internal refinement process, okay, so you need to come up with more questions. Second, you need to start thinking technical implementation, which is high level tech implementation. You guys have to start thinking. Okay, right now I'll just tell you what exactly this means. Okay, we will get into this later, but right now just at a high level. And tomorrow's session, last time we did this, okay, last time we took one of a use case. We'll pick the same use case again, but we will dig down in more detail. So guys, tomorrow don't miss the session. Okay, it is Friday, but we are going to take a practical use case which includes a front end, which includes a back end, which includes a third party, which includes a mobile app, and more requirement. We already launched it last time, last batch. We will again tell that, but now we will see how do you really convert that initial thought into implementation. Okay, what should be a step-by-step thought process about positive cases, negative cases, interaction with the third party, non-production environment, stage environment, prod environment. How do you basically develop through all these phases? So tomorrow we are going to really get into this. So first we will understand the requirement, and then I will expand the tech implementation part of it, how we should think as a step-by-step process from design to implementation. Okay, so tomorrow we'll get there, but now at a high level tech design. Okay, let's go. Basically what happens, yesterday we spoke so many things. Okay, open sources needs to be mastered, database decisions has to be done, all of that comes into picture here. Okay, for example, what needs to be cached in this whole flow? Okay, next, what should be a DB design? Okay, do you need any asynchronous processing? For that, do you want to use any kind of ActiveMQ or message broker? Any use case does it? Do you think it will fit like that? Next, do you think about auto scale here? Is it really required? Will there be any problems if you're trying to auto scale? Okay. Concurrency wise, if multiple requests coming at the same time for the same method, you just consider all of these thoughts. Okay, how are you going to develop it? And we are in a microservice world. How many services will be required to build this feature? Service 1, service 2, service 3. You need to come up with all of that. Okay, first service will capture the request, but for this request we need to go to that other service. He's going to give me some other data. Okay, and then once you get that data, then I should talk to some other service. Okay, for example, let's say login wala feature. Okay, so one entry, the person is trying to log in. Okay, now internally at the login, let's say you start maintaining this counter of every failed attempt. Okay, now let's say after 3 failed attempts, you would like to communicate an email to the customer. Okay, your account is locked for some time. That is a requirement. Now login service is not going to do that. Login service will talk to an emailing service who is somewhere else. Emailing service says, okay, bye, I will be dropping an email to the person with whatever template. So now one service is just a login service who increments the counters. When it has failed, it talks to emailing service. This emailing service shoots the email to the person. Now comes the question, how do you want this service 1 to talk to service 2? Do you want to make it a synchronous API call? Just nothing but internal REST API? Or do you want to do that via a message broker? Okay, you raise it to ActiveMQ and then service 2 is going to listen from ActiveMQ and then do it. Many people emailing service always they prefer asynchronous processing. Now all of that high level design discussions will happen. How the pieces will be of the system, how many services will talk, how the DB will be at high level. That's what is high level structures. And in that, if they don't overcomplicate systems, keep it simple, but keep it what is really required. Okay. Now, once all of that part is also done, and there are further more things which needs to happen as part of internal grooming. Or okay, so once the internal grooming is done, you need to get all the clarifications and then you go for estimation. So we will be speaking about this estimation. So tomorrow we will resume with estimation. Okay. Then we will be touching the topic of story pointing. Okay. Next, we will be taking a end-to-end project use case. And how do you really convert that use case into a proper implementation? Okay. And for that, there are going to be dev environment, QA environment, stage environment, prod environment. A full cycle will be there. How does the developer and infra guys connect together? So it's a big thing. Okay, one by one, let's absorb this. The best disciplines abhi full hua nahi. Okay, now it's already 10. We will share the attendance, we will close. But the main takeaway out of the session, okay, first, agile is productive and learn it. Okay, because it will really give good value. Second major thing, requirements should be separated from your sprint development cycles. If unclear requirements are taken and you start developing it, massive consequences will be there. So second step is requirement process should be different, sprint process should be different. Okay. Third step, while the requirements are being groomed, you have to involve and collaborate with the product owner tech team, ask questions, get the clarity. If the requirements are not clear, don't start developing the project. That is the third key thing. Requirement should be clear. It should meet the definition of ready. Then only you start developing it in sprint. Otherwise, simply say, nahi yoga. I will not be able to do it because we are not clear, and then tell what is not clear. Let them work hard and give you the right requirement. Okay. And the fourth, for every requirement, you need to get this kind of bare minimum clarity as a mandatory thumb rule. Plus questions will also come that we are still discussing. So we are still not on the day one of the coding also. we are still doing the background work to prepare the ticket so that we can start coding. Okay, fine. So we will be resuming on the same topic tomorrow 9 p.m. Let me quickly share the attendance. Process this information, guys. Simple thing, but it is being violated in many projects, and because of this confusion, a lot of people suffer with stress, tensions, deadlines, pressure, and it really backfires very badly on them. Okay. So thoda sa start enforcing this discipline for your own work from tomorrow onwards. Don't violate it. Violating will have a lot of consequences. Okay, chalo, sharing the attendance. And guys, like we said, attendance is mandatory for going into the week 3. 8 out of 10 sessions minimum has to be done. So 8, 9, 10, those guys will be going into the last day. Okay, 8989 is the code for today, and this is the link. Everybody, chalo, mark it. And it will really give you also a kind of involvement, a sense of learning. Okay, my third day is done. Tomorrow I want to do my 4th day as well. A continuity momentum, it will happen because every topic is going to be very valuable for your corporate journey. Okay, so don't miss anything. Gaps mat seeko. It's matter of 15 days, guys. Thoda prioritize it. Okay, it's 10:03. Let's mark the attendance, copy the link, everyone. And then tomorrow we will connect back again 9 p.m. Okay, there is just one thing I would like to say. We meet up every day in the morning 6 a.m. also. Okay, every day morning 6 to 7 a.m. Monday to Friday again 6 to 7, where we are doing some morning routine where how highly successful people live their mornings. So we do that activity on a daily basis. We will be launching it with the current batch also, but if anybody of you is already a morning rising person, join us. So tomorrow is our 5th day, Friday. So we will do it tomorrow. So come in. So maybe you can experience that. Okay. That's what it is. Chalo, and I'll share you a WhatsApp link if anybody of you is not in our internal WhatsApp groups. So I have many groups basically, career transformation, and then there is a sequence. Okay. So if you're already part of any career transformation WhatsApp group, so there I share the Zoom links. Okay. So you can ignore this, but if you're not part of our internal WhatsApp groups, so please click here and join in. So there we keep sharing the morning related links and other stuff. Okay. Okay. So guys, tomorrow's session important. Don't miss it at any cost. Okay. It's going to be pretty useful. Attendance link already pasted. Let me paste it one more time. Karthik is asking. Let me share it again. And guys, chalo then let's close the day. It's Thursday, tomorrow is Friday. For weekend time is coming. Okay. So thank you all. Take care of yourself and